All right, so this is day 2. So we have been talking a bunch about different ways of doing discipline in our elementary physical education classes. Come on, there we go. So one thing that I really strive for is to deliver efficient instructions. So the younger they are, the shorter their attention spans. I mean, my 2-year-old right now has an attention span of about 5 to 10 seconds. If you want to try to get a point across to him, even something like, now we're not supposed to climb on top of the couch, which is what he's currently doing. He likes to crawl over the couch and sit on the windowsill. And he thinks that's so funny. I'm like, you're not allowed to climb up there. So I put him in his crib for a timeout, and he doesn't like it. I come get him. Why were you in the crib? I climb. I'm like, I'm not sure if he's understanding the connection. But anyways, so focus on pretty much 1 or 2 things at one time. Don't go too crazy. You can over-instruct, especially the younger ages. If you give them too much detail, too many things to focus on, they're just going to forget whatever you say and do whatever they want. So giving them one focus. Make a tea and throw. Pick an apple out of the tree and throw. So you're just focusing on 1 or 2 things at a time. Your instructions have to be pretty quick. This one says 20 to 30 seconds. I'd say the 30 seconds is closer to your 4th graders. Your kindergartners is going to be closer to 20, as best you can. You want to say it, give them practice, and then give them feedback. That's pretty much everything. I have almost the exact same wordings for my coaching class for what I was doing for Thursday's lecture, with the same concept. When before what? So that's what I think. When I say go, I want you to, because if you say, I want you to pick a partner, and then they will forget everything you say because all they're worrying about is finding the best partner to be with them. So make sure do your when before what they need to do. Do a good job starting and stopping your class. You can either do a voice command. I saw a really good physical educator. He was actually a classroom teacher. I could not hear him. He's bringing kids in. I was turning pages for my mom for a grade school, little Adventist grade school. And this guy comes in and he's super quiet with his 1st or 2nd graders. I think he might have had 1st, 2nd, and 3rd together. But he just quietly would just be like, and go, and stop. And like, these kids were so in tune to his very quiet voice. Like, how do you do that? And he taught all the physical education classes for the school too. Like, how does this quiet individual? He had commands for everything, and they practiced those routines. I wish I could have seen like the first day of his class. Expect 100% of people to do things when you say. If you let one person get away with talking while you're going to be in trouble. Because it'll just keep going and keep going and keep going. It goes all the way through high school. I just had running this morning with the prep basketball team, and I started exactly at 6:30, according to my iPhone. And I had 4 people walk in at 6:32. We had already finished the first run. I'm like, you got to do that same thing that everybody else just did, and you got to be on time. Because if I start being late, they're going to just get later and later and later and later. So if you let one person do something, it's not going to go well. Moving students into groups quickly. My personal favorite, I'm going to have you guys stand up. I want you to find a partner and stand next to your partner. Go. Okay, so from here, I could and you can do groups of 2, groups of 3, groups of 4, depending on how many groups you need. And then I would say, I need one person in your group to sit down. Doesn't matter who. Okay? If you're standing, I want you, somebody sit down over there. If you're standing, I want you against this wall. If you're sitting, I want you against this wall. Go. And that's the quickest way. And you can do this for like, make them do rock, paper, scissors. If they're a little older, you've got several options. You can go back to your spots now. But that's my favorite way of quickly making teams. Sometimes I'll do like one person puts your hand on your head. Another, if you do like groups of 4, one on your hand, one on your head, one on your shoulders, one on your tummy, and one person sit down. I want heads over here, shoulders over here, tummies over here, and sitting down over here. And so rather than, I saw it in my T&T class, they were walking down the line, go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 for 30 people, pretty close. I'm like, there is more efficient ways we could do this. So being able to make your groups quickly and dividing them in half. If I want to be like totally random, I will play rock, paper, scissors multiple times. And I'm like, if you win, say rock, paper, scissors, shoot. All right, if you win, go over here. If you didn't win, notice the positive there. If you didn't win, you go over there. I don't say losers. So, and then like, all right, find a partner on your side. Play rock, paper, scissors. If you won, you're over here. If you didn't win, you're over here. And now you're getting to be even more random so that you don't end up with like the best athletes on the same teams. So it's just a quick way to do that. If you're going to have small groups, you could have them. I never let kids pick teams because then you always have somebody who gets picked last and their feelings are hurt. I actually had both elementary jobs that I had for physical education. So they asked me, how do you pick teams? I was like, I never let them do it. I will always either post it or do groups, mix them up, and then go. Sometimes I'll do it for squads, and again, I pre-make those. So if I had like 6 squads, I will make them for like whatever sport I'm playing. Like we were playing flag football. I had 25 people in my class. I'm like, all right, closest I can get is 6 on 6. So I made 4 teams of 6 people, and those were posted on the wall, and so they knew what color. And while they were running at the beginning of class, they were supposed to get on the pennies of that color. So before class even really got going, they already had the colors for their teams. So other good ideas to do there. I struggle with this one. I am horrible with names. There are people in weight training class this morning. There's 3 girls. They all are of the same ethnicity and all have the same basic shape, and their faces are all round. I'm like, I don't know which one's which. There's 3 of them, and they're all friends. I'm like, there are just no physical characteristics that are easy to come up with because they all are the same shape. They all have the same round face. They all have dark hair, and they all like to wear their hood up like you're doing. So I can't even see them half the time. It's just like, And so I know that there's 3 students, these girls, that I do not know which one's which. I just know that when that pod comes in, I just count all 3 of them.
For PE classes, if it's cold, you like to wear that jacket and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
And what about
Usually it's up to the school.
I know that some schools say, oh, keep the hoodies off.
There are a lot of schools, and this is all from like 90s gangs culture, that they allow no one to wear hoodies of any kind. They have to be a zipper one, so like usually hoodies. But you also have to be really careful the older they get. I know this is just a side note there. The older they get, if they're trying to keep their hood or long sleeves on all the time, you worry about other things going on, like are they cutting themselves? Are they depressed? Things like that. If they never take off their hood. There's a kid in 7th and 8th grade the other day, had a mask on, hands in their pockets, didn't want to participate at all. And I talked to their teacher. I'm like, is that kid okay? There's just like, I was like, it's like 90 degrees outside and we're doing physical education and they still have a jacket on. She's like, I don't think I've ever seen that student without a jacket on. I was like, are you concerned? She's like, slightly. I'm like, okay. So you're just, yeah, I don't really neglect which way or dictate yes or no on those kinds of things. The one that you really need to, that's more difficult with the younger ones when it comes to clothing, is kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade when girls wear dresses. It depends on your school and your teacher. So some teachers make them all change. I had uniforms for 7th through 12th. So they had those shorts and shirts that we gave them basically for, like the school had a t-shirt making thing, and so they could screen print on there. So we got them pretty cheap. And I would just make like 200 of them in a summer. And that way it would last me for 3 or 4 years for handing them all out, all the different sizes. I was blessed that the 1st and 2nd grade teacher, her rules for her classroom is if you wear a dress, you have to have shorts on underneath. Otherwise, they'll come to physical education class and they can't do half the thing. Oh, I'm wearing a dress. I can't do that. Or they're being totally immodest and you're just like, trying to, and go. And you're like, oh my goodness, this is not good. So hopefully your teachers are aware of that already, but it's really awkward when you're the guy physical education teacher and the kindergartners come in and, oy. Yeah, so that is it. That I have more trouble with that than hoodies.
But it's just depends on the school rules, on dress code,
Mm-hmm.
have uniform. It just
Yeah, one school I had a very strict physical education dress code. Other ones had uniforms for physical education. Other ones had like rec attire, like for like a boarding school. Like you can wear whatever you can wear to rec, you can wear to physical education. And so in my syllabus, I had to have in there, you have to follow the handbook's rules for rec attire. So as I say, you just got to know your culture and know your rules for the school when it comes to what they can wear for physical education. And if they're cold, let them wear a jacket, pretty much. And if you're going to be outside and it's cold, you're going to have to do that as well. We already kind of talked about the teaching areas in and out of there as they move in, how they start the lesson. I've had some teachers that had a specific, like the kindergartners, when they came in, they would run one length of the court, they would sidestep, they would heel walk, and they would toe walk, and then they would sit in our spot. Like they had a routine of different actions they would do, different locomotion things as they walked around the gym. So just having those things, how they start the lesson, the younger they are, the more routines are going to make a difference. After you do this, sit in this spot, or sit on a line. My kindergartners, I don't know why they thought this was so much fun, but I'd have them run one lap on, and I never told them to stay on the line, but they always did. And I never told them not to. And they wouldn't even pass each other. Like the fastest, if the slowest person was the line leader, they'd all be like jogging in place behind the one person. I didn't know. It's like, okay, whatever. I didn't tell you you couldn't pass them, but we're going to keep it. And I would take the rubber dots and I would turn backwards and I would just throw them over my head. And I'm like, and you get to go over there. You get to go over there. You get to go over there. And they would chase them, and they'd roll in weird spots. And it was just a way of spreading up, but they thought it was so much fun. I'm like, okay. So I kept it. And I kept it for 3 years with these kindergartners. Like as they went from kindergarten to first to second, every time I would just chuck them over my head. There were only 7 of them, so it wasn't too bad. I mean, if there were 20 or 30, that would take forever. How you close the lessons. At the end of class, I would always have them line up somewhere. Line up at the door, and then we walked out the door. They would line up there, and they'd get a drink, a 2-second drink each person. And then I would take them back to class. And my elementary teachers loved it because the kids came back to class already calmed down. Rather than going from playing a rousing game of dare base, let's just say, and all arguing over, I tagged you, no you didn't. I'm like, all right, kids, go back to class. And they just send them, and they'd still be arguing when you send them back to class. The teachers really don't like that. Apparently the person before me did that. However you want to put equipment in and out, discussing how the passing times are for when you talk to behavior issues. So when you take them back to class, you send them into their classroom, keep one out in the hallway and talk to them, that kind of thing. Doing your best to use equipment efficiently for small things as best you can, like a ball. If you can have one for every student, that's the best thing you can do most of the time. If you got big equipment, then you're going to want to have stations. I have some pictures of that here in a second. I love doing stations, especially if you're going to do the same basic thing all day long. So set the gym up for 4 or 5 different stations for your 30 kids that you're going to have come in every single class period, which may or may not be how you do it. But if you're the full-time physical educator and you're teaching at a grade school that goes from kindergarten through 5th, you can pretty much run the same stations, you just got to update them the older they get. But you can just have the whole gym set up already for those big things. Teach students to place the equipment at a home position. So like my kindergartners were crisscross applesauce, hands in the basket, ball on top. And so they'd have to have their hands in their crisscross applesauce and the ball would be on top of them. So that they could basically have a place for all 4 limbs. Some of them have a listening position with their hands on their knees, ball between your feet. Remember that one? I think I stole that one from another teacher. Having things along the walls, I've already kind of talked about that. Yeah, so that they can get it quickly. So here's just some ideas of how I've seen it done. So this one, they're using clothes baskets to put their the throwing projectiles in, and they're working on throwing with those cones or the scoops. So I can do this without making too much noise here. So they call this pumpkin launch. Oh. So if you knock one down, it looks like you have to go get it. I'm not sure why that's not playing the whole thing. I think it was if you got one knocked down, you had to run over there, put it back up, and then I've taken silly, especially the younger ones, whatever stuffed animal, bean bags, whatever. They take one of those and they put it in the basket in front of them, and that's how they keep track of score. And so you'd have 2 or 3 of them going on each group. I love this one, but I love mini golf.
Red out the gates.
If you make it, you get to do a tic-tac-toe.
Blocking. Oh!
So, a couple things to point out here. Can I make this mute? Nope.
Okay, Orange.
That one is just not going.
Oh. Oh.
Oh, goodness. So, they've got gymnastics mats keeping it from going too far. They've got tape on the floor. It looks like they made the holes that they're passing them to.
Lots of action.
And they've set up, looks like at least half a dozen of these stations around the
Oh! Almost blocked. Ah!
All right, so those are some examples of using your efficiency or trying to be as efficient there. This one is really just for fun. This is probably, they had this thing set out for something and the physical education teacher just figured it out. So it's a great idea for kindergartners especially. And they just keep chasing. I don't know why the video is so short. But yeah, they would just keep chasing it. Good locomotion skills using a slow object. I've even seen them try to make it. They put a smaller ball on there, like a foam one. If it's pointing straight up, it'll actually stay in place, and the kids think that's super cool. Good old physics. This one, you can see how it's all set up already. They've got dots around the edges here. This is called Monster Ball. Great for a throwing unit. Not a bad rainy day activity. You could play this in a classroom, just putting desks to the side and a bunch of, lots of dodgeballs. And then the last one here, this is Gaga Ball. They set up Gaga Ball with tables. And it looks like they've got multiple ones. Like, that is a brilliant idea. Even to the point of some sort of stepping thing. Looks like it would be like, if you're doing like an aerobic thing where you're like the step things, probably another thing from the 90s. That's what that looks like to me, but it's probably something that was sitting in their physical education closet, no idea what to do it with. But that's a really good way to make Gaga Ball if you don't have it. That would be a great thing for a physical education class. And that's something you could have that set up before school starts. Go teach your classes, and when they come to the gym or whatever room that they're doing it, they'd be like, oh, we're going to play Gaga Ball, what? They'd be really happy. Just be careful of how heavy a ball you use for that. You might need to find a lighter ball, like a kickball rather than like a soccer ball, because a soccer ball is probably going to knock the tables back. And also your younger ones would be better for those. I hope this one goes the whole way. This is another good, I love this idea. So lots of good things going on there. Object manipulation, hand-eye coordination, being able to strike an object. It's a slow-moving object. They've got so many things set up around here to put as targets to go through. You can make this into a game of how many points you can score, or you can just say keep it off the ground. Like your day one would be try to keep it off the ground using something. Pretty much, I highly recommend buying whatever cheapest pool noodles you find whenever they're on clearance for 10 cents a piece. Get as many as you can, cut them all in half, and just keep them in your closet. There's so many uses for physical education for a short noodle. My other personal favorite is, I call it mosquito tag, where you stick it on your nose and I actually told them to put it on the forehead, got somebody to get a bloody nose. Yeah, they stuck it on their nose, but usually when they get close to somebody, they end up doing this and they tag them with the hand. And I didn't care at that point. And when you get caught, you have to itch until somebody sprays bug spray on you, and then you can be released. Silly things like that. I saw a really good one where they made a helmet out of noodles. They made a noodle and then a thing on the end, and that was their mosquito tag helmet. I was like, that's brilliant. So, I mean, anyway. Pool noodles are amazing, and they're cheap, and so if it breaks, it's not that big a deal. Moving along. So the book actually gives you different levels of misbehaviors. So you have, are they being irresponsible? Is it a self-control thing? Because some kids are like me. They're way too hyper. Whatever kids you got upstairs when we were doing things with the elementary school, whatever the hyperest kid that was so excited for physical education, that was me at that age. Probably will be my son. Is it evolving things? Is it self-responsibility, or is it they just don't care? And you'll get the level 4 one. The older they get, the more they don't care about others. And they're very self-centered. And it's not totally their fault, but that's just as they're maturing, they become more me-centric and don't care about the feelings of anybody else. So teaching acceptable behaviors, model it yourself, reinforce it. And I'm going to have something in just a second to help you with that. Offer time for responsibility and reflection, whether it's a place to do that or the refocus sheets that I had them do. Giving time to share with each other. Encouraging any kind of goals that you want them to do is a good thing. Choice is always fun, but you don't want to give them too many choices. But the older they get, the more they like choices. So like you have a cardio thing on a screen. You could either do push-ups or squats, and you can give silly names to them for like Star Wars themes. You know, do the Yoda squat or the lightsaber lunge. And they could do either one of those two. And so they just love to have a choice. And that helps some of those things. We're going to watch this video. This is a more detail of the conflict corner that I like. And this guy's just more efficient in saying it than if I tried to explain it.
Next up is the conflict corner. Raise your hand if you do the conflict corner at your school. Just curious. Anybody? Oh, look at that. Look at that. So this is, if you're going to try anything, this is probably the one that I would say is the Easter egg of the whole presentation that will save you the most headache. This is when me and Marcus started, we were like, there's just so much tattletaling, so much wasting time. And we wanted to teach kids the value of how to resolve their own conflicts and also put that responsibility back on them. And so the rule for our school is if you have an issue with somebody, you have to first go over to this poster that's over in the corner, and you have to go through the steps of conflict resolution to resolve that for yourself before you come and talk to me about it. But if you can't resolve it on your own, of course, I'm the adult in the room, I'm happy to help you out. But 95% of the time, what happens is either they figure it out on their own, or when they come up to you and they're like, hey, so-and-so did this, they weren't playing by the rules of the game, and I say, hey, did you go to the conflict corner? It's like a little filter for them, and they're like, you know what, never mind, it's all good, and they jump back into the game because they realize that it's not that important. They just wanted somebody else to solve their problem. But if they have to solve it themselves, nah, we're good, we'll just keep playing the game and not worry about it. So it's just a little filter for you. Same thing happens with this injury form. When a kid comes up and they're like, hey, my stomach hurts, I don't think I can do this activity. And I say, hey, no big deal, go fill out the form, take it home, get it signed by your parents. They're like, you know what, I think I feel pretty good. And they like jump back into the game. It's a filter for them to decide if it's a real issue and they really can't participate, that's fine. Just let your parents know about it and they sign it, they bring it back. But if it's just a fake thing that they're just not wanting to participate, then that kind of helps motivate them to do that. I'm going to show you this video of me and Marcus explaining this. You can kind of see how we explained it at the beginning of the year.
Conflict corner, this has step-by-step instructions to help you resolve your conflict. First thing is hands out, palms facing up. So when you're resolving your conflict, you need to hold your hands out just like this. Everybody try it. The reason that you do this is because it helps you to relieve stress. Instead of balling your hands up, everybody ball your hands up. That makes you feel stressed out and tense. So make sure when you are trying to resolve a conflict that you hold your hands palms up, open. Next time you are taking a test and you have pass testing, you might want to try this quick little trick to help yourself relieve a little stress right before that test starts. Number 2 is explain the problem. So that would be Mr. Nelms. He's the one that has the problem.
So, Mr. Landers, when we were playing hula hoop throwdown, I saw that you were stepping over the line. The teacher told us earlier that that was a break of the rule. So I'm explaining the problem to you that you stepped over the line.
All right, so now Mr. Nelms has told me the problem. Number 3 is listen to each other. So we need to make sure we listen to each other, and I'm going to tell him why I broke the rule or my response to his problem. Mr. Nelms, when we were playing that game, I was having so much fun. I didn't even know that I stepped over the line. Honestly, I wasn't even looking down on the ground when we were playing. So that was my side of the story. Number 4 is brainstorm a solution together. Brainstorming means that you're trying to talk together and figure out a way to solve the problem. Does anybody think they know a way that would, something that would solve our problem for us? What do you think?
Still have fun, but you need to look at the ground.
I need to look down at the ground when we're playing the game. If I look down and I don't cross the line, then that would solve the problem because I wouldn't be breaking the rule anymore. Is that a solution?
Yeah.
Yes. After that, we need to shake hands. Then we need to give a compliment. Oh, Mr. Nelms, I love those shoes you have on.
Mr. Landers, I love that blue shirt you have on.
Thanks, Mr. Nelms. And then we can get back into the game.
So that's kind of how we explain it. We just do a little role play for the kids. Now that Marcus isn't with me anymore, I just pick a kid out and I say, hey, he wants to give an example, and we kind of go through the steps of conflict resolution. If you go to if you're just curious about that whole hands up thing, if you go to the blog where you can download this, it has a link to a TED Talk that gave me the whole idea for putting your hands out like this. And they studied body language in people and found that if your hands are clenched, all your hormones and all the chemicals, the sciencey stuff in your body that like increases your stress goes up. But if you just open your hands up and take a deep breath, it reduces your stress. So it's really hard for kids to yell at each other when they're standing in front of each other like this, with their hands out, palms up. So it kind of sets them up for that conversation. It's going to go a lot better. So that's kind of the reason that we have that hands out, palms up start. If you're also teach older kids, or if you just like this better, thephysicaleducator.com, Joey Fife, he's a teacher out of Canada. He did a redesign for his middle and high school kids. It kind of has more of a cool vibe, less of an elementary vibe. So that's linked up on the blog post as well if you want to check that out.
What do you think? Best thing I have ever discovered in physical education. And you can use it in your classroom too, like if you're a classroom teacher. I hate all the tattling. And when somebody be like, so-and-so did this, I'll be like, Most of the time I just was like, it's just part of the game. And usually it was something like that. So-and-so tagged me. No, they didn't. Why don't you go to the conflict corner and talk about it? Never mind. I just don't want to. It's not that important. I'll keep playing. That's usually what ended up happening. And as you would say, 95% of the time, they just want someone else to deal with their problem. If they have to figure it out themselves, they just won't care, and they'll just keep playing. So I loved this concept, and it was a huge success for me, and it made it so I could teach more and deal with little minor things a whole lot less. So same basic concepts here, same basic steps, and you can have this is just what the book says. So if you have a quiz question, that's the one they want. If they have it, I won't guarantee. I don't remember what's on that quiz. Same concept here, peer mediation for any kind of conflicts that you have. And so making sure that each person can tell their side of the story. That's probably the hardest part, because they're going to be like, no, they didn't. That's the hardest one. Increase your good behaviors. Reinforce when you see them. When you see a student do something really well, show the whole class most of the time, especially the younger ones. That works pretty well. So another interesting one here. This is the Premax principle, also known as Grandma's principle. So the higher probability of behavior to reinforce a less probable behavior. So children must eat their vegetables before they can have dessert. Student must finish their homework before they're allowed to play a video game. It's good and bad. It could motivate some students, but it doesn't motivate all of them, at least in my experience. So we've already kind of talked about cues and shaping their behavior. He has even more stuff here. I just don't have time to show
What
it.
helps?
When it comes to unacceptable behavior, I say all these are great, especially don't do it publicly. Isolate yourself from this with the student, but don't be totally alone, because that's where things can get blamed. One student at a time. If somebody gets in a fight, the first thing I do is separate them. You go sit on the stage, you go sit in that corner. And then I go deal with one, and I get the game continuing going, and then I go sit on the stage and talk to one kid. And then I go sit in the corner and talk to the other student. And then I have them conflict together and that kind of thing. Yeah, don't intimidate students. That's just hopefully logic of teaching right there. Also, be real careful about being sarcastic, because they'll take everything literally. Yeah. Also, try not to raise your voice at all. If anything, I have to actually focus on talking softer rather than talking louder, so that only that student can hear me. Because otherwise, other students I'm so loud that other people can hear me all the time. And you can come up with your own concepts here, but this is just the book's one. First and second and third behavior, depending on what you're having them do. And this would be part of the routines and things that you want for your classroom, for your gymnasium. I love the refocus sheets. I kind of talked about those. So here's a better example. Still tough to see there. So refocus, this would be like the high schoolers, or not high school, middle schoolers, third, fourth, above. What were you doing? What should you be doing? When I finish this form, how will I change that? Younger ones, they call it a frog sheet. I love this one because it gives you focus, relax, own it, grow. The choice I made was, this means I was not being respectful. This is what I was... When I made this choice, I felt, oddly enough, I'd have a kid be like, I was not being respectful, but I was happy that I did it. That makes for a good conversation, though, when they say that. Why were you happy about doing the wrong thing? That makes it's fun. It's just interesting so use these to go on there. Here's one that came out of the book. This one they had to go sign the teacher, and I had it. There were rules, and this was a school rule, that if you had a refocus sheet, you had to sit in the office until the end of the class period, and you could not return to physical education until your parents signed the refocus sheet. So, I had to be a little more lenient on when I gave refocus sheets at that school, because I didn't want them to be kicked out of class for the behavior they were doing. So I was like, they kind of changed that halfway through the year, so it ended up being a little different. As best you can, be consistent, but honestly, life is not fair. So not all people are going to be treated exactly the same. And you're going to hear in physical education a lot, the teams aren't fair, this isn't fair, da-da-da-da-da. And I don't try to pass that off and be like, oh, life isn't fair. Be like, well, are you the same height as so-and-so? So that means I need to treat them a little differently than you because they're taller. You can't control that. So trying to kind of turn around on what things can you change, what things can you focus on, because they're going to be all about what the other person did wrong, and they won't think they ever did anything wrong. All right, I got to move on to